Welcome back to another episode of Breakthrough Consciousness.
The podcast where we get out of the loop and into it all.
My name is Sean.
And I'm Clayton.
And after listening to episodes 3 and 4, we agreed that it would be a good idea to do a little bit of a wrap-up and just highlight our key points for that little mini-series talking about the distractions from living in the present moment.
And also what we can do to allow ourselves to come into a more concise and clear space within ourselves. And also wanted to use this little summary episode as a bridge for both of those episodes and show how what we referred to as distractions can relate and really just be pointers towards that inner play, that inner work that helps bring us to those clear points.
Exactly, because, distraction itself has a negative connotation. That's not really the energy we're trying to bring to recognizing what those things are. It's like Clayton said, it's really, these are catalysts to our own self-growth and our inner play, inner work, inner practice, as we were talking about in episode 4.
The way that it kind of represents itself to me, and I interpret it through my own filters, which we've talked about, is that these distractions are more so, like you're saying, catalysts. We might be doing a particular action, following suit with a particular energy, moving forward with a certain thought process that might not be in our, greatest good, that's kind of further away from the center of our truth, our true self, and who we are or are growing to be. So we might start feeling pains within ourselves, emotionally, physically, mentally. We're not too happy, don't have a lot of energy, and it's really, it's all so closely related, like it really is just all one. Like these distractions outside of ourselves are just as much us as our hand on the end of our arm attached to our body. But what I'm saying is these distractions will make us feel a certain way, and we'll be doing something that might not be best for us, and we'll start to feel sad, feel bad, and we don't need to take it as, oh, this is so bad. Really, it's just a sign. It's kind of like everything telling us, oh, well, this isn't really what's right for you. So if you want to feel better and do something that brings you closer to your truth, closer to your center, it's really just a sign pointing towards the right direction rather than oh my God, this is the worst, you shouldn't be doing that. There's really no punishment other than us continuing to hurt ourselves and not realize the signs that are being produced due to the steps and actions that we're taking.
Absolutely. That's where the interplay comes in. It's recognizing that those things are really just mirrors for ourselves. Signals, like you said, they're symbols to get us to look at ourselves, reflect on our own actions, and see how we can steer things to a more present-centered lifestyle. And so I really just wanted to recap episode 3 and just sum that whole distraction discussion up and say that the main distraction / obstacle of life is life itself.
The physical, third-dimensional experience that we all refer to as life.
And just take a moment to really think about that, like really feel that out. What do I mean by the biggest distraction in life is life itself?
And no, we're not demonizing like being alive and playing and experiencing and doing the things that we want to do. It's more so pointing towards that feeling that we really are creating all of this internally and experiencing it outside of ourselves. So when we continue to chase the physical path and dive further into this third dimensional reality, which is deep down on a quantum level, just a reconstruction, a representation, a reflection of our own inner world and the whole collective conscious community, so to say, to throw that big old term out there, is it's really just one large manifestation and illusion that allows us to experience this as individuals, as one part of the greater whole, and seeing through that illusion, that distraction, per se, those symbols, into the greater truth and connected center of the self that we are all that.
And even as beautifully stated as you put it there, and with all the imagery and words, that in and of itself wasn't the truth that we're pointing to. You know, those are just the fingers. Our words are the fingers pointing towards the truth.
Exactly.
So let's literally like sit in this for a second, you and me. Let's sit in what I really mean. How is life a distraction of truth? How is life the obstacle within truth?
It really only is if we resist it. If we're resisting the experience that we're creating for ourselves, that's the only way that it could be an obstacle, is our resistance to the experience that's being created from within. At least from my own experience and feelings, like, because this Maya illusion obstacle is just as much the truth as it is the illusion. Which right there is enigmatic in itself, but enigma always points to a deeper truth. And like you said, like, as beautifully as any of us can ever attempt to state or point the direction to, that's all it really ever is getting a little bit closer to
an
it.
Attempt.
An attempt.
An attempt to hold up a mirror to ourselves and to others with our words, with our art, with everything we do. We're holding up mirrors to one another, trying to get each other to look within and realize that that connectedness is the one truth with a capital T, and that eternal space, that eternal witness, that eternal light is the truth that life is a quote-unquote distraction from.
It's just the sandbox mode for all of our Sims to go and have fun. Mm-hmm. And we just so happen to be the Sims at the same time as the simulation.
Absolutely. And we're more focused on the simulation. We're more focused on the avatars. We're more focused on ourselves, the ego, than we are focused on, oh, wow.
The programming itself.
Not just the programming, but the programmer, the whole light, the whole energy, the whole force that's moving through all of it and creating all of it.
And there's so many symbols and representations that have been culminated by so many amazing people over time. The Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio, how all of these different symbologies appear all throughout nature, multiple times over our own human bodies. That there is this greater pattern that all of this physical life is following after. And I even feel like that central source of self, just again pointing my finger, where I feel best and closest to that center, is constantly evolving and growing in its own way. So it's continuously getting better as we're continuously evolving and becoming more in the image that is perfect and connected and more openly influenced from within rather than more openly influencing from within rather than being influenced by what we've already created from without, and becoming more like just the mirrors rather than the light itself.
Rather than being imprisoned by the molds that we hold from our social conditioning, from our belief systems. I mean, come on, guys, we're all living a script here. I'm sure we've all noticed our own loops and patterns that we go into, and, to what degree that may be.
Damn, Skippy. There's some wild ones, too.
The easiest one to point out is that, you work Monday through Friday, take Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday to relax. That's a script that's out there in American business culture right now. Of course, there's so many people that can't mold to that, but that is the predominant story.
That would be called culture, like that's a cultural system right there. That's part of a culture. And then I've even noticed recently a large part of my thought process, slight tangent, kind of relating, is how counterculture maybe does the exact opposite of what the culture is doing, but it's still part of that same illusion. It's still buying into the same physical principles. It's just finding an entirely different way of doing it.
It's a subset. Whereas, it's like the underbelly of
exactly,
a culture.
Like it might have
corollary.
Yeah, like these things might have started as like grassroots growing movements, but then in the end it becomes just like a counterculture system to be within this third dimensional principle because it stays so regimented and exact instead of staying fluid and playful like that central source is. It's constantly growing and evolving. Like I was saying, it's never the same, so we can never really stay within the same means all the time. I would say that the only bridge between the illusion and the truth is our adaptability and change.
And what we choose to focus on. You know, do we choose to focus more on the illusion, or do we... The illusion, you know, I think that's maybe not the most relatable word, but do we choose to focus on the symbols or what it's symbolizing? You know, do we choose to focus on the forms of reality, or we choose to focus on what is creating those forms, what is feeling those forms and experiencing and witnessing all of the happenings of life?
Like shadow puppetry. You know, there's 3 very prominent pieces to that. There's going to be the light, there's going to be the hand or whatever is creating the form, and then there's going to be the projection of that. And the image projected might not actually look anything like
the form.
Like the form it is, you know.
Or the light that's shining into it.
Or the light is
that
light
all-encompassing. It can be anything.
Yeah, exactly. It is everything. It is all of that. And then, so there's a form, an idea, thought process, and then bam, okay, now the light shines on this and it goes through this filter and then this appears. It creates this other representation, goes from this all-encompassing light through a third-dimensional object to create a two-dimensional representation. And I kind of feel like you can take that example and
see the symbolism
see the symbolism, how it would work even from higher levels, coming down and down, breaking itself down to where we are here, third-dimensionally.
And that just makes me think of how that's like a sample of a greater fractal reality, where like you're giving one example in this
of the infinite potentials.
Yeah, exactly. And it could
created.
Be represented in different ways, you know, even like in geometry, where you'll have like a room that's a dimension of like 2 feet by 3 feet. Well, it would like simplify down
so
to
like
the same
4 feet
thing
by
as
6
like,
feet.
Yeah, essentially that type of thing. Anyway, so yeah, it's just that's a cool metaphor. I dig it. So I think we've more or less wrapped up what we're getting at with this mini series, you know, and just I wanted to reiterate that distraction is not a bad thing. That's really just it's a catalyst for growth.
Exactly.
It's really not distraction at all. It's forms of reality. Life itself. Forms of reality.
And we just wanted to create that bridge between the 2 episodes. They're not so vastly different. The interplay or the work that leads us towards the center or whatever pulls us away from it, they're actually so closely related. They're basically the same thing. They're all symbols and signs, and if we're able to interpret them, not worship them, then we'll learn a little bit and we'll grow internally and come closer to those centers instead of getting caught up in all the pizzazz and the jazz of
the intellectual mental space.
What's really going on and how funky it feels. We gotta, come into that bliss in the center, and it's still funky, it's groovy, but
it's a slower flow.
It's way calmer. Less waves come crashing in, or even more waves can come crashing in, and it's okay. Because it's a state that is accepting and allowing and easygoing and flowing.
It's the difference between like a stream waterfall, the waterfall of this stream versus the waterfall of the stream being like our train of thought versus the ocean of the heart, the true home of consciousness and of centeredness.
And all those streams are flowing where,
Exactly.
So it's all connected. It's all leading us to the right place. We just have to be open to the signs, the symbols, the directions that those distractions per se are pointing us, so that we can play with it more and allow it to lead us closer to ourselves. Thanks for getting out of the loop and into it all.
check us out for our next episode. We'll have a special guest. We look forward to uploading that one for y'all.
And just wanted to add, if anybody had any questions, thoughts, ideas, comments, we're on Facebook as Breakthrough Consciousness, and also our email, breakthroughconsciousness@gmail.com for now.
And we're also on Instagram at Breakthrough Consciousness Pod. And this would be a perfect opportunity to go ahead and reach out and let us know any comments or questions, what you've thought about the podcast so far, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Indeed. And of course, if you have anything to implement, you have any ideas to come onto the podcast, things you'd like to share, we'd love to have more guests on. And like Sean said, we're going to be having Stephen Huliston on next week. He didn't say that, but I did. I said his name. Bam, that's my dad.
With that said, I want to leave off today reading an excerpt from the Tao Te Ching, the most prominent text of Taoism, and we can go into more depth in talking about Taoism and maybe some of the other Eastern religions in future episodes. But in essence, the Tao is roughly translated as the way. And I feel this will be a perfect way to put the exclamation mark at the end of this mini-series and wrap up everything that we've been attempting to communicate here with our words and imagery. So here it is. This is a translation by Ned Ludd. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The names that can be given are not the eternal names. The nameless is the origin of heaven and earth. The named is the mother of all things. Therefore, without intentions, I see the subtle essence. And with intentions, I see the manifest forms. These two are of the same source, though each has many names. Both may be called the mystery.